Oh, you know what I forgot to do? Hey, Google, set the temperature to 25. Let's see if it does it. Hey, Google, set the temperature to 25. Goodness gracious. Oh, there she goes. Finally, she did it. Hey, we're good to go. So I say this. Hey, hello. Good morning. Welcome to that other live taping. Slow down, Evo. Welcome to the live taping of Podcast Pontifications. I shall be your host for the next 15 minutes or so, Evo Terra. Thanks for joining me. Very Bob Ross sounding thing. Yeah, not doing that. That's not me, baby. That is not me at all. Hey, thanks for watching. Today we're going to talk about recouping your podcast's reputation costs. Ooh, a fun little topic here. If it is your first time joining me, hi, my name is Evo. I do the show every Monday through Thursday on the live streaming, just so that my friends Arlen Amblin and Matt Medeiros, your name is complicated, Matt, and it probably shouldn't be. Anyhow, Arlen and Matt and Betty and other folks like to watch me do this thing live, so I like to give a little behind-the-scenes tour as I'm cleaning out the pipes and doing all of the things. Hope y'all had a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Matt. I will slow down. Hope you had a great weekend. I had a productive weekend yesterday. I was kind of excited. One of my longtime clients, who's kind of fallen down the rabbit hole of other things besides podcasting, is coming back. We have I think we've got a decent plan. Actually, it's a very good plan. I like the plan. It's more than decent. It's a good plan. It kind of fits more in their style of doing things. So I'm excited about seeing what we can do. Might have a network effect. So building, instead of one show, now there's going to be 3 different shows. Ooh, it's going to be fun and exciting. Lots of things happening there. Yeah, so that was a good time for me. Hope it's a good time for you. Hey, this is the point where the new people are going, wait a minute, this is the podcast? And like, no, I have to remind you, this is not the podcast. This is the live recording of the podcast. This is me warming up my voice. First time I've used it today. Getting myself situated, stretching out the back, doing all the things so that I can, in about 2 minutes, deliver you a fantastic episode of Podcast Pontifications. Oh, you know what? My glasses are on, and I bet those look like garbage. Let's refresh the screen to make sure that everything is still going fine. I'm sure it is, but you never know. You never know. Sometimes your restream likes to freeze up on me in there. It looks like things are working fine and good. Right. Trying to think if there's any housekeeping items to talk about before I jump into the program. I feel like there is, but for whatever reason, it is not coming to my brain. So anyhow, I will just tell you that, hey, again, new people, you can skip all this preamble-y stuff if you want, because this is not going out in the podcast. Right now, it's only you, me, Arlen, Matt, and others are going to hear this thing. All this stuff gets this gets cut off. This gets cut off. So nobody hears it but us. So if you want to skip all this stuff, Podcast Pontifications is where you want to go, because that's where at 10 o'clock today, Phoenix time, it's currently 7:02 a.m., so a little less than 3 hours, finalized episode will be available with some changes, some slight changes coming up in the article that gets posted. I'm going to talk about that at the end of the program, so don't, when you hear me say, when you can tell the content is over, which you can always tell, I don't want to hide that, there's a little snippet before the Boostergram Corner, so stick around to hear what's new in Podcast Pontification's world, some new things that are available. All right, so I think I'm good to go with my voice. It's going to be what it's going to be. Let me start adjusting things, slide that over closer to the camera so I look like I'm speaking somewhere near you. And I'll do the cold open. The cold open is as follows. No rational podcaster likes spending money needlessly, but every day, podcasters make choices on and around their shows without understanding the underlying costs to their podcast or themselves. That's the one. Okay, where's my quick time? There it is. I'm going to start recording. I'm going to do this. Here we go. Oh, I'm going to move the chat because that was like front and center. Like, somebody would type something, I would have totally lost my train of thought. Probably not, but still. Here we go. For real. No rational podcaster likes spending money needlessly. But every day, podcasters make choices on and around their shows without understanding the underlying costs to their podcast or themselves. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. When you mention a product or a service on your podcast, that act has value. Big value, small value, doesn't matter. It's value, which is why ads and sponsorships cost money. But that same action, mentioning something, has a cost. And it's a cost that you pay with your reputation. Now, this entire episode is not about advertising. I want to assuage your fears first off. Although I will say also, it's somewhat about advertising because most rational listeners know that when they hear an ad on your podcast, it's a paid-for exchange. You're not doing that out of the goodness of your heart. So you are kind of required to read a script and say things. However, that does not mean that they'll forgive you if you choose to advertise a crappy product on your podcast. They won't. You know that, right? And so that's why there's a cost, or I guess better, or that the reality of that cost, or the risk of that cost is then offset by the revenue the advertiser gives you, the podcaster. But again, this is not about advertising. That's just where we start thinking about this. And we can take that thinking and expand it, because this is really about all of the other products and services that you mention on your show for free. They all come with a cost. Now, you might use Patreon the way that I use Buy Me a Coffee, that I'll mention here in a little bit, right? And we're trying to drive people to that site so that they can then lend their support to you, much like people can use buymeacoffee.com/evoterra and lend some support to me. But there's a cost. One reason there's a cost is that's a zero-sum game placement, right? You can't talk about any other service while you're talking about whatever it is that you're using. So that service better work really well. It better be really well branded for your show, and it needs to be a smooth customer experience because it costs you to mention it. The same goes for how you drive people to your show, not on your show, but perhaps in social media. Your reputation is on the line when you send out a link to your show. It says, listen to this. What link are you using? Does that link make for a good experience for everyone? Because remember, it costs you every single time somebody clicks on it. Are you spending the money wisely, spending that cost wisely? To a lesser degree, the decisions you make on hosting, whether that's hosting your podcast episodes and generating your RSS feed or website hosting, those all cost you in reputation points as well as real money there. But to your listeners, it's reputation points. So you can blame the limitations of your inability to get your show episode details formatted properly on your website host. You can blame the lack of ability to put a link in because your podcast hosting company won't allow for that, but that's fine. Keep in mind, though, that your listeners are going to lay the blame at your feet. You're the one that made that choice. You're the one who are incurring those costs. If you promote your guest appearances on other podcasts, on your own podcast episode, that's costing you something. It's costing you something when just for them to hear about it, but also when they click through and listen. Was it your best show? Did that host do a good job of representing what you wanted to say? If you promote your upcoming speaking engagements on your podcast at a conference you're going to, that happens at a cost. does that conference expose to expose? That's the word. Not the right expose. Live up to the values, the reputation that you yourself have, because there's a cost when you say I'm going here. Now, I say all of this not to tell you to stop saying and mentioning things on your podcast. That's not it at all. This is for you to realize that everything has a cost, whether it physically costs money out of your pocket or whether it costs you reputation points. Your job is to make sure that you're getting more value than the cost you're actually spending. And it's important that you really understand the full journey you're putting someone through when you mention a product, a service, or anything else really on your show. Because like it or not, you just made, with that mention, a tacit endorsement. So make sure it's worth it. Now, to that end, you'll notice something new in the article and the newsletter for today's episode and what you'll see in all of the episodes I put out this week. There's a new section, and it's called, currently, Supporting Shows Showcase. Yeah, I love my alliteration, don't I? This is a paid sponsorship opportunity that was conceived of, actually, by a listener, Tom Fox of the Compliance Podcast Network. Thank you, Tom. And naturally, Tom has acquired one of the spots in that sponsorship section to promote a new series he's just releasing called Looking Back on 9/11, which you should take a listen to. Also in there today, you're going to see a new show hosted by my partner, Sam Walker. It's called American Vigilante, which is going to be a gut punch over and over again, I really think. Looking forward to listening to that today. And there's also, there's one more, an inclusion by another one of my partners, Mr. Brian Barletta from Sounds Profitable, the podcast ad tech newsletter and podcast. You'll have more details about the, what I call it again, Supporting Shows Showcase, if you go to podcastpontifications.com/sponsorship, if you want to get in on some of that action. Let's do some boostergrams. Well, just one boostergram actually today. Someone, and I don't know who, used Breeze, cool little app, but again, I don't know who, and they said in the message, I'm just here for the boostergram corner. Smiley face. Well, thanks, whoever you happen to be, but I just don't know who you are, which is unfortunate. But thank you very much for the 1,000 sats, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money because sats are tiny amounts of money. Anyhow, if you got value out of today's program and you're using one of those fancy new podcast apps like Breeze, then feel free to boost some sats my way and send a message. I'll read it out here on the show. If that's too complicated, because wow, is that stuff really too complicated? Again, buymeacoffee.com/evoterra is where you can go to show your support for the program. That's it. I shall be back tomorrow with yet another podcast Pontifications. Cheers. Recording is stopped on the video. Recording is stopped on the audio. Boom. There we go. All over and done with. Show completed, finished out. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. You people were listening to it. If you are just now tuning into the program, you missed it. And while you could back up 13 minutes and 47 seconds to watch the entire live stream, I have a better solution. If you go to podcastpontifications.com and you drop your email address in the big subscribe box, you'll get a notification. More than a notification, you will actually get the real article I'm about to write, where I take every word I just said and reassemble it into an order that makes sense when it's written down. That's going to go to you, emailed to you, and about 400 other people, just because you gave your email address. Simple as that. And there'll be a link also to the audio episode if you want to listen to it. And clearly, it's a podcast, so and since I say be everywhere, we're everywhere, and I literally mean everywhere. So if there is some place that you can't find podcast pontifications, let me know, because I genuinely want to make sure that it's everywhere, which I always do. Okay, that's it. Thanks for your attention. Have a lovely rest of your Monday. Got Tuesday's show already lined up, which is unusual for me to be this far ahead, but I'm ahead for the entire week. Crazy town. Maybe I'll continue to be that way going forward. Regardless, have a great Monday. See you back here tomorrow. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Bye.